Hi everyone and welcome to your reading session today. We're going to be talking about a text called Happy New Year by Adrian Frater. Now, if you have thought about the word Adrian Frater, you might have noticed that one of our learning coaches is got the same name. And you'd be right, Mrs. Frater, who teaches art, this story is written by her mum. And in actual fact, it's a true story. And Mrs. Frater, our learning coach who teaches art, is in it. We are going to be looking at the reading strategy of predicting. So that's when the reader uses text or picture clues to help guess what might happen in the text. That's a really important reading strategy to use. So before we read the story, we're going to look at the title and the illustrations. And then during the reading, I'm going to stop the video, ask you to stop the video, and we're going to predict what's going to happen next. So let's have a look at the title and the first picture. When do we think the story might take place? Where do we think the story might happen? And what do we think the story will be about? Pause the video and see if you can answer those questions yourself. Well, I had a little think and I thought, well, the title says Happy New Year, so that tells me pretty much when the story is taking place. Where might it happen? Well, it looks as though it's kind of on the coast and there's some boats there. So it's something to do with a story about the summer, going on a boat trip maybe, going fishing, being at the beach, being in the bush, because there's lots of bush in the picture. Let's carry on and see if we can find out whether my predictions or your predictions are actually right. So this story has been set on Great Barrier Island. Mrs. Frater's told me this. And we can see way up here that where Great Barrier Island is. We live in Auckland, so it's up there. It's kind of at the end of the Coromandel Peninsula, we can see that. There it is, says Mum. There's Great Barrier. Kathy can hardly believe they're almost there. She looks to where Mum is pointing and sees a thin blue smudge. It hovers in the distance like a mirage. Kathy would like to draw her first view of the island, but the water's too choppy. Here's some questions for us to think about. First of all, before we think about those questions though, pause the video and read through the text that's on the screen. Well done, everybody. Here's our questions. What is a mirage? If you're not sure, you might need to go and look that up in the dictionary. The next question is, what does it mean when the water is too choppy? Well, I know about chops that you eat and that you can chop wood, but this is about water, so it might be a different kind of chop. The last question is, Mum checks the chart as they get closer to the island. Wonder what they mean by checking a chart. Wonder if you can use your nautical knowledge to work that one out. Before we go any further, we know that they've arrived at the island. We know that they're about to anchor for the night. We know that they've talked to Uncle Pat on the radio. So pause the video again and think, where is the story going? What might happen next? I can see that Kathy and her brother are having a swim near some bush, so that tells me that they've got off the boat and they've swum onto the island, or they've got onto the island. I wonder if your predictions are correct, so you need to pause the video, read through the text, and then at the end, do two things. Number one, check to see if your predictions of what's happening next to the story have come true, and number two, make some predictions about what you think are going to happen next. How are you going? Here's our last page for today. I can see Kathy drawing. I know Mrs. Frater loves to draw. So she's drawing. So I'm going to predict that this last page has Kathy, the girl in the story, going and doing some drawing. I can see she's quite a wee way away from from the bay where her boat has been moored. Read through the text and read through the text, and I'll see you at the end. So pause the video and then we'll look at what our last activity is going to be. We're nearly at the end of our reading for today. Hope you've enjoyed doing some predicting. So our follow-up activity, which you can actually record any way you like. You can write it directly into Hero, or you can write it on a piece of paper and you can upload it onto Hero, or do it on slides and upload it onto Hero. So I want you to write a short paragraph, maybe 3 to 4 sentences, about what you think is going to happen next in the story. And then you go back in the text and choose 3 to 5 phrases or sentences that helped you make your predictions. So that's your kind of evidence for why you made those predictions. Remember, a phrase is a group of words that kind of makes almost like a half sentence or a really tiny sentence. All right, so looking forward to seeing what you have to say. And we will look at version 2 or part 2 of the story tomorrow. Ka kite anō.